Welcome, my name is Trevor Dierdorff. I own an IT support company in Colorado Springs that supports construction-related companies from Fort Collins down to about Trinidad. We've gotten to help a lot of our clients with choosing technologies, making technology work, finding ways to be more effective and efficient as a business. You might know some of these companies that are Colorado-based construction companies that we currently work with, and you probably recognize some of these apps those clients are using. This isn't all-inclusive, but it's a good taste of some of the things that we're used to dealing with, kind of where I'm coming from as far as my experience. Near and dear to my heart is IT, and you may or may not realize that the construction industry lags really most other industries in IT spending. So we already know construction is generally a low margin industry, and there are a lot of things that are beyond our control. It might be the economy is a big one. It could be weather factors, availability of materials. We've got hard costs. We've got employee time, errors, unreimbursed expenses, waste, and theft. As much as we can reduce these things, we can help make our projects more profitable, our businesses more profitable. In a lot of cases, there's a technology answer for all of it. I'm going to talk about some of it today. Then I'm going to get into what's coming down the pike. There's some technology today that maybe isn't ripe yet, but it's coming. 20 years ago, we didn't have most of these technologies that have been game changers in the industry. Mobility. This has kind of been a game changer. We're not using paper out in the field like we used to. How many are using Bluebeam Review out in the field? And that enables you to work and collaborate probably better than you have in the past. Whether you're using an iPhone or an iPad or a Windows tablet or a Windows laptop or an Android tablet, we're seeing them more and more out in the field. But these tablets, these phones, they're fragile and they're expensive. Certainly the cheapest of the bunch, as far as what you might buy out in the field, is the Android line of tablets and things. And depending on how you need to use your computers, it may be sufficient. We are seeing mostly with our clients iPads and Windows laptops. So how many of you are using multiple monitors at your desks? 10 years ago, that answer would have been 2 or 3. Remember, I used to take a second monitor to a client and set it up on their desk and say, I'll come back in a month. If you don't like it, I'll take it. But if after a month you want to keep it, I'll just bill you. And I did that probably a dozen times. And the answer initially was, I don't need it, I don't want to spend the money on it. 30 days later, I poke my head in the door and it's, get out, invoice me. Reluctant to admit that they were actually enjoying it. You end up with just adding a second monitor. They've documented about 20% more productivity. Large touchscreen displays. We're seeing these in conference rooms these days more than projectors and screens. It allows people to interact, and a group of people can get up in a conference room, work together collaboratively in a big format. So there are technologies today that are biometric. There are some that will use a thumbprint, even a thumb that's cracked or muddy or things like that. They also have stuff that's iris-based, and they also have facial recognition time clocks. So if you haven't looked at those yet and you think it might be a problem in your industry or in your business, you might look at some biometric time clocks. Now there's a lot of different brands of solutions out there. I'll tell you that me and my company, we're pretty agnostic as far as what you want to use. It's our job to help make it work and keep it running. These monster copiers used to be in job trailers. One of these desktop units that can scan to email, scan to server, print pretty good color documents. Accounting software. These are just a few that we've seen in the industry. It's always interesting to me when we have a construction company that's using QuickBooks versus some of the other stuff that's really built for the industry. Recently discovered this from 2017 Annual Construction Technology Survey. This is a survey from 80 years from now. Sage acquired Timberline, and Viewpoint Sense acquired Dexter Cheney. There's a lot of consolidation of these tools out there, and it's really pretty expensive. We had a conversation around the fireplace last night with a consultant who specializes in recommending and implementing software solutions, and really the conclusion is There's not a perfect one. If you're using, one of the big brands out there, that the cost of changing versus really getting good at what you've got, often it's a training issue versus that the software is inadequate for doing what you're trying to get done. People hate training. They just want the new thing to work like the other one should have, but it was really more of a training issue. So real quick, what are some of your biggest frustrations with job site technology? Some of the things that we deal with, for instance, like a job site, sometimes it's a remote area, and getting connectivity to a job trailer so that people can get access to files and have a small office that's right there. You're not going to get CenturyLink or Comcast to bury cable to your job trailer for an 18-month project. And we'll talk a little bit more about why it's important to have something that's reliable, fast, but also secure. Low adoption rates of new tech is certainly one of the things that we find. You're going to spend $100,000 or more sometimes on these software packages or technology solutions. Don't skip paying the $10,000 for the training so that your people are competent to use it. So job site security. Certainly we put up cameras, we put up fences so that we can protect what's out there, and then we set up a job trailer and run everything off somebody's cell phone or an insecure connection, and we don't pay attention to firewall. And the fact that that job trailer is connecting back to headquarters, that's a weak link in your network. And you might end up with somebody with malware that gets through that pipe and encrypting your servers, and then you've got to pay a ransom to get your password to unlock that. Hopefully you're working with your IT folks to make sure that all your sites are secure, not just physically secure, but through the internet secure. This is an example of one of the devices that we use for some of our clients at job trailers. We've got a lot of options for connectivity. So this is an LTE-based solution that you can get through Verizon or AT&T, but you can also, the speeds really range on your proximity to a cell tower. Anybody using something like this or something like HughesNet at their job trailers? We're seeing a lot of that. HughesNet is an alternative if you can't get cellular connectivity. HughesNet and these types of solutions tend to be metered, so you're paying for the consumption, not simply the speed. And how it gets used, it's also a good idea to leverage some of the capabilities in your firewall to limit things like streaming video. You really don't want to pay to have your folks in the job trailer watching Netflix all day, or YouTube, or hanging out on Facebook. There's some things that you can do to limit that bandwidth consumption. Hopefully you're not using smoke signals. But what this has enabled us to do versus before this was a reality is you've got people spending more time on the job site and not time driving back and forth between the job trailer and headquarters to get plans or information or whatever. How about robotic total stations? The GCs in here, are you outsourcing your survey stuff, or are you using robotic total stations? There was this guy named Buck Davis. I found this LinkedIn article that he did, talked about cost savings on a project by using a robotic total station. And the cost of the total station itself, these days they've come way down. They're sub $20,000 now. A few years ago they were in the $50,000, $60,000 range. But if it means instead of having 3 people doing surveying, you can have one person who's trained on the equipment do it, they can typically do it in a fraction of the time for less money. And this equipment will pay for itself sometimes on your first project, much less all the other projects that you've got. There's several different brands out there, and it's worth looking at.